I'm loving how much these game improvement irons spin. The next generation Titleist T-Series irons are here, and there are some big changes. We now have the Titleist T100, T150, T200, and T350. There are some additions and some subtractions to the lineup. Let's compare the irons and find out exactly what has changed. I really think this Titleist T150 is just going to be so impressive in the fitting bay. You're going to be shocked to see how good the results are with this club. Hey golfers, Thomas Campbell, Director of Instruction at Swing Lab Performance Golf. Today we're going to be talking about the Titleist T-Series Irons, the new generation. It's exciting times. I really like what's happened here with the new Titleist irons. They're now down to 4 of them. They've eliminated the old T100S and made a little bit more forgiving iron in the T150. But yeah, they look really good. This is the first time to hit them. I'm excited to test the data a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the differences in the irons. So first off, the Titleist T100 has kind of been the staple as the tour player's iron. Believe it or not, even the best golfers in the world, they're not playing muscle back or MBs and CBs. A lot of them stick to playing the Titleist T100. So it's kind of the tour player's iron. Traditional lofts, shot shaping, versatility, all of that going on. Then there's been a change. As I mentioned, the T100S is no longer. We have now the Titleist T150. It's kind of a replacement of it. It still has a little stronger loft. It's really like your player's iron, if someone wants a little bit more distance, but at no sacrifice of, you've still got some forgiveness with it, but no sacrifice on versatility. Then we've got the Titleist T200 that is still in the lineup. That is your player's distance iron. Lofts are a little bit stronger. It's all about distance, and it's about getting that distance but without sacrificing that stopping power. And finally, no longer a T300, no longer a T400, and now we have the Titleist T350. Kind of fits right in between the two of them. It's going to be interesting to see if there is another iron in the works possibly to replace kind of like the T400. But the T350 is still a great looking iron, but it is your more forgiving iron for golfers that want to hit the ball far, want to have some forgiveness, and also want to have a nice inspiring club to look down at. Let's compare some numbers and find out the differences between them. Before we get started and hit some shots here, I have all the 4 irons out in front of me, and I'm going to talk a little about the look in these irons. First off, T100. Over time, it's got smaller and smaller, and it does look like a blade. It's hard to even believe that Titleist even has a CB and an MB, because this really is kind of like, it looks like a muscle back looking down at it. But it is a cavity back. As I mentioned, even the best golfers in the world are playing these irons. Next, we have the Titleist T150, and this really looks very similar to the old Titleist AP2 irons. I remember when Titleist replaced AP2 with T100, this is what this club kind of looks like. It's like a little bit more of a rendition as a replacement. Slightly larger lines, pretty similar to body shape. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one fits in. T200 now. That is just, we're talking now it's a player's distance iron, but really when I compare this to these other two that I've talked about, it's really not that much larger. And I mean, yes, the loft's a little bit stronger. It is a player's distance iron, but it looks so much cleaner. The badging on the side, everything just looks so nice and clean. It's a very beautiful club. T350. This is where, I'm having a hard time in the transition because, T200, it is, that seems like it's a little bit smaller than the old T200. And then T350, it really is kind of like a blend like the old T300 and T400. So it is, it's a little bit larger profile. It is, a blend of game improvement and distance. So that's where that one kind of fits in. It'll be interesting to see the numbers. Let's hit some shots and find out. I played the old 718 AP2 irons, and this looks very similar. I just can't believe that there is one, yet two irons smaller than this in the lineup. Okay, 20 swings, not a single shot eliminated out of this data. Let's talk about the differences between these irons. The one thing I did notice was when at the T100, when I didn't quite catch it solid, is I did get punished a little bit. I noticed the dispersion pattern was just a touch larger. At the other end of the spectrum, the T350, just because the ball was going so much further, that dispersion pattern was also a little bit larger. But we definitely have to talk about the other two and how good that consistency was. But let's talk about the numbers first. Average club speed, 91 point something is what on every single club here. So this is a great comparison. There's no differences in the club speed. Let's look at ball speed. So the T350, because it is a little stronger lofted, it did lead there at 130.9. What's interesting though is the T200 really wasn't that far behind, and neither was the T150. So the smash factor numbers, if you look there, 142 with each of the three irons. I find that interesting because a lot of times in the past I've seen like game improvement irons where they've gone really, really too far. But I did notice that the spin rate was also still fairly high with the T350, and the height retention was good there. So we didn't get so much of a flyer. The ball didn't go crazy far. It was forgiving, but nothing was, you know, out of whack and going too far. Yeah, as I mentioned, smash factor 142, 142, 142. T100 137. Now that would make sense because the loft is a little bit weaker, more traditional at a 34-degree 7-iron. But it is interesting that the T350, the smash factor wasn't a little bit higher. I'm a little surprised by that, just knowing that the loft's a little bit stronger. This is where I find it really interesting. And in the past, I've done a lot of comparisons of game improvement irons. And with my swing, genuinely, I'm a little bit more of a sweeper. And I don't spin the ball a lot. However, I was getting over 5,000 RPMs of spin with a 7-iron that, let's face it, the loft's closer to a 5 or a 6-iron. So we were still getting a lot of spin, which is awesome. We want spin because spin is control and spin is stopping power. So almost 5,300. We look here, T200, 6,100, so over 6,000. The spin rate went up. T150, interesting. Spin rate was actually about the exact same as the T200. However, you'll notice this consistency at plus or minus 75. That definitely stands out to me. And then T100, 6,500 RPMs of spin. It's right where you want to be out of a more traditional lofted iron. Carry distance. This is where, when I'm playing, I usually carry it between 178 and 180 with my 7-iron. 178.2, so we're kind of right where I want to be. My 7-iron has 34 degrees loft also. But we're not seeing that T350 all of a sudden carrying super far, or even seeing the rollout being super far. So it was carrying 194.9, but you see the total distance of 204. So there was plenty of stopping power. That's exactly what you need out of a game improvement iron. A lot of times when that loft is too strong, that ball is going to roll out 15, 20 yards. Well, that did not happen here. It was actually less than 10, so that stands out to me for sure. 187 was about the carry distance with the T150 and T200. Now we know the loft is 2 degrees stronger than a traditional iron with the T150, so 32. T200, usually the loft's a little bit stronger yet. So it's interesting that the carry distance, it wasn't maybe quite as far apart, but very, very consistent overall. The height is crazy. This is where Titleist has knocked it out of the park. If we look at the height of all the 4 irons when I was swinging here, 106, 107, 108, 110. And the one that was flying the highest was actually the one that has the least amount of loft, the T350. So what I'm saying here is, regardless of what iron that you kind of get fit into, they're going to do the job with regards to stopping power. So this is awesome, what we want to see. Yeah, I'm really impressed. Landing angle, stopping power, the consistency of all the irons is just so incredible. Dispersion is the last thing we got to talk about. Check out that blue circle. New iron this year, T150, and it's the smallest circle right up there. So that stands out. The consistency, as I mentioned, the spin consistency of 75 RPMs. But also, if we look at the carry distance, we're talking 186, 186, 186, 187.0, 187.1. So there you have it. Not only is the club a little bit stronger lofted to give you a little bit more distance, but we didn't get any inconsistent yardages there. And yes, I'm a good ball striker, but what we notice here is even if the face is a little bit open, a little bit closed, is it went the same distance. We also kind of saw that with the T200. Yes, there was a couple further left, but the ball didn't go flying way too far. It actually carried about the same distance every time. So this is awesome. I'm loving the new generation Titleist T-Series irons. I think they're going to do an awesome job in fittings, not only for tour players, but also any particular player that is looking at irons. I think that's the one thing you got to remember of Titleist. A lot of people think, oh, that's a player's iron. Well, they have these 4 different irons. I mean, remember they actually have 6 different irons with the CB and the MB. I don't even think we need to go that far. As I mentioned with the T100, this is pretty much your tour player's iron here. That's for your purists that love and muscle back in a CB. So you've got great variation, great options with Titleist. So if you're interested in Titleist irons, make sure you come in and check us out at Swing Lab Performance Golf. We're in Minnesota here, so if you live in the area, make sure you come in and schedule a fitting with us. If not, make sure you subscribe to our channel and stay tuned for the next video that we're going to show. Thanks for watching.